Welcome to the Skagit County Track and Field Podcast. We're your one-stop shop for all things track and field in Skagit County, home of the longest-running track meet in the state of Washington. We are dedicated to promoting our schools, our athletes, and the incredible sport of track and field. From the heart of the Pacific Northwest, we bring you the latest news, interviews, and insights from the track. Join us as we celebrate the passion, dedication, and triumphs of our local athletes. This week, we've got a jam-packed show with not one, but two special guests. First up, we welcome Anacortes' Brad Templeton as our co-host. We dive into Brad's off-season training, get his insights on the Skagit County track scene, and of course, recap his incredible 2A boys state championship title. Later in the episode, we're joined by Bob Frey from Emerald Ridge High School in Puyallup. Coach Frey gives us a behind-the-scenes look at their dominant performance at the 4A State Girls Track Championship, where they impressively scored over 100 points. It's an episode you won't want to miss.
Welcome to Season 2, Episode 6. We're here with Brad Templeton, the head coach at Anacortes for both cross country and track and field. So appreciate you joining us for Season 2. We had such a good time in Season 1. Excited to have you back.
Yeah, hey, this is great. So glad to be back and talk to you guys.
Brad, I guess the first order of business is congratulations on you won more than a couple championships last track season. You guys were county champs on the guys and the girls side, and you were also state champs on the boys side. So before we get to the state championship stuff, the real important question is, can you kind of talk about what it meant to your guys' squad, maybe as a staff, or maybe, you know, how the kids felt after winning both the guys and the girls side of the county meet?
Oh, yes, I'd love to. For any listeners that haven't listened to Season 1 of this podcast, go back and listen to some of the episodes where we talk about the Skagit County Championship meet and what it means to all of our programs, and that will give this answer some context. We're one of the smaller schools in the county. Our boys don't have the opportunity a lot, or don't make the opportunity a lot to have been champions, but it was so cool to actually come through last year with the team title for girls and boys. Our girls have been county champions now for, I don't know, we've done pretty well the past 5 or 6 years. But it was just a mutual thing. The girls were cheering for the boys were cheering for the girls, and on the way home, the boys actually broke out into song on the bus, which I thought was probably one of the coolest moments of the season. So it was just a really fun weekend for us, and I woke up the next morning with this huge smile on my face.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's one of my goals is to win a girls county championship before I kick the can or before someone forces me to kick the can. But to win both of them in the same year is pretty sweet. And so, you guys will be hosting this year. We're excited to come out to A-Town, out to the edge, and run some track on the beautiful purple track there. Yeah, are you pumped? What are your feelings on hosting the county meet?
Oh, it's always kind of anxiety provoking, but I'm pumped to try and put on a really good show. I think we will. We're going to show off our new timing system we just purchased that I'm kind of feeling my way through now, and I'm editing our bulletin right now to get some stuff out of the way. But I think it's going to be fun. We usually get a lot of people out for even just our Wednesday meet, so I'm looking forward to a big turnout of track and field fans for the county meet.
Cool. Well, I hate to jump ship on county because this is the Skagit County Track and Field podcast, but honestly, if you're looking at this thing from high up in the sky, you had a much bigger championship that we need to celebrate and talk about. And so, our idea for Season 2 was to get some state championship coaches on the podcast and talk about, their ways of being successful and creating successful programs. And Brad, I can't tell you how happy I am for you. I know that you were a coach here for a while at Woolley. When I first broke into the track scene, you were the distance coach here. And I just can't tell you how cool it is and how much I respect you as a coach in your guys' program. And to have you guys win the state championship this year at the 2A level was pretty cool. So congrats first. And I'm going to run down the list here of how you guys kind of scored your points, and then you can kind of give us a quick recap as soon as I'm done. So starting off with the 100, you had Brady Beaner finish in third place. He ran an 11:38 in finals. And again, if you know anything about the state meet, the times on that straightaway, and specifically this year, we had a pretty big headwind and the weather was brutal. But I know that he's been down faster than that, but he ends up third and gets you some good points. We get to the 800, and this is where you guys in your distance, and this is a direct reflection of you and your coaching and your knowledge. This is where you guys start to put some damage to other teams. So you're gonna have to help me. Is it Dylan Rowell or Roel?
Dylan Rowell.
Oh, so neither. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah,
Dylan Rowell.
just call him D.
Okay. He finished second in the 800, an extremely close race with the kid from Ephrata. He ran a 1:54.68. He was fourth. I'm sorry. No, looking at prelims here. In the 1600, Dylan was fifth. He ran a 4:16.6. But you also had a state champion in the 1600. Parker Mong ran away with it, beat the Columbia River kid, and ended up with a 4:10 1600 meter. Parker goes back to back. He wins the 32 with a time of 9:03.91. And then you guys score some points in some relays. So your boys 4x1 takes fourth with a time of 42:42. That relay was made up of Schaefer, Parks, Brady, and Brock Beaner. And then your 4x4 finishes a great state meet for you in second place. Ryder Sill, who we are very happy to have as a Siege Woolley Cub this year. Dylan, Brock Beaner, and Brady Beaner finished second in that with a time of 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Yeah, kind of talk to us. Oh, and I forgot high jump and triple jump too. So Zeke Hawkins wins high jump. He goes 6'4". And that was maybe the funnest performance to watch just because, he'd shown glimpses of it. And I know that you coached the high jump too, but he had a state meet out of his, what. And so it was really cool to watch
Yes, he
him
did.
jump 6'4". He actually ties with two other kids, but wins it on judge's decision. So Zeke was your state championship in the high jump, and then he placed fifth in the triple jump as well, jumping 42 feet 9 inches. So maybe just give us a quick and dirty recap on the state meet, the experience itself, and then we've got some more in-depth questions coming for you.
Sure. Kind of headed into the state meet, we kind of knew we'd be in the mix. It was kind of funny, we knew what teams to look for. But between us and Columbia River, they kind of would throw a punch at us, and then we throw a punch right back at them. I know they had some pole vaulters and I think discus throwers, and then it just went back and forth. They'd win an event, and we'd win an event, and they beat us in the 4x1, and it was just back and forth, and we just didn't know where it was going to end until that 4x4 came up, and I talked to the guys in the tent, told them what was at stake and what they needed to do. And they went out and did the best they could with the team that had set the state meet record the day before or the couple of days before. But it was a really fun weekend. I'd never been in that position on the Saturday of the state meet to really, well, I guess we did once with the girls team, but it was really fun. The guys they didn't freak out. There are a bunch of competitors. We got some cross country kids. We got some football kids. I think we even left some points on the table too. Our 110 guy kind of in the prelims clipped us toe and didn't make the finals, so I think we would have had some extra points to spend there. But yeah, it was a really good weekend.
Yeah, as an observer, when it comes down to the 4x4, it's extremely exciting. But I can't imagine as a coach when it comes down to the
Oh my God.
4x4.
I can't remember whether it was Brock or Brady that on that anchor leg. I had him split 47 high on that leg, and it's just like, okay, do we move him to the 400 next year? Or will my sprint coach kill me?
Yeah, sometimes it's one of those things where you're like, do I want to get my best out of him in this relay, or could we really squeeze some more in that open? And sometimes with those guys, they can only do it in that relay. Not that he can't, but
Yeah,
it's amazing
no,
what they can pull out in that relay.
yeah,
We've had some athletes where you put them in an open and you're like, oh man, I thought, and then you get them in a relay and it's like they're running out of their minds.
All
Well,
right.
thanks for the recap of the state meet. We had a question for you in terms of what were some of the key moments or turning points during a championship season. So at a certain point in the season, were you kind of seeing things or realize some things, or like what was that sort of even at the state meet? That thing that kind of clicked. So
yeah. No, there actually was. Through the season, I thought back and I kind of picked out three spots that kind of maybe made a difference in the decisions that we made as either me or our staff. The first was Brock Beener early on at the season at the Twilight and the Ham meet. Was I think he was long jumping and he messed up his hammy, I think it was, and he couldn't go. We decided to hold him out and be super cautious with him all the way up until I think the county meet, and we just give him even limited duty there. And then in postseason, I think we just had him do the relays, just kind of save his legs, and it worked out for us because we scored some points in that state with him. And he's healthy now. So that was one. The second one is one of our high profile athletes, like just a couple of days before the county meet. He's a good kid, but there was a little bit of a situation where uh, we needed to step back a little bit, so we held him out of the county meet. And to his credit, he came back stronger than ever, didn't hold a grudge, and did what he could, especially at the state meet in a couple of races, and scored huge for us. Um, so that was probably number two, and then number three, and I kind of got laughed at this for a little bit at our seed meeting for some districts, but I could have put Dylan Rowell in. He probably could have qualified in any of the three distance events, but I decided kind of to take him out of the 32 and just hold him in for the 800, which ended up making a big difference in that he got us 8 points in that 800, and if he had run the 2 mile, probably would have only finished fourth or fifth. So I think those three things had a direct impact on how the guys did at state this year.
It's funny
you
how
know,
coaches can make evaluations of other coaches' decisions when they don't know the kids, they don't know the situation, they don't know the significance of
Oh,
anything. I guess that's just
certainly.
the world we kind of live in now. So good for you to stick to your guns and do what you know it was best. Um, Speaking of knowing what's best, as a coach, you've got to make some tough decisions throughout the year, um, for both the success of each individual and for your team. What's something that you were kind of most proud of regarding this specific team's accomplishments? And there were a lot of them.
Yeah, I went through kind of thinking about those questions earlier today, and then I reread the questions before I came on with you guys and said the one thing. So I had several I could point to, but I think um, our guys, we have a lot of guys that were kind of, and I'm going to say new to track and field. I mean, they've been on the team last year, but we've had a lot of football guys come over, and then we've had a lot of young guys come up and contribute. So they don't necessarily know what it means or don't identify themselves as track athletes. I'm talking about the Beaners. I'm talking about some of the other football guys. And then, Dylan is a young guy. He's coming into his own. But I think during the season, those guys really grew and they coalesced as kind of a group. And I think now, if you'd ask them, they'd identify themselves not just as a football player, but also as a track and field athlete. And that's something I'm really, really super proud of because I love the sport, and now I feel like I'm passing that on to the younger generation.
no, that's really great to hear. And I mean, we talked a little bit about in the first podcast, recapping the county meet about some of the athletes that we have in the county that are multi-sport athletes, and I think that we always get really proud about having county kids that aren't track specific kids. Not that that's a bad thing, but we really have a lot of athletes that participate in track, and it's always great to see when they start to appreciate what they're doing on the track as much as they are in the other facets. So yeah, in terms of being proud, that's a proud moment right there. So I had a question here. What were some of the specific training strategies you employed leading up to the state championship? And for you, obviously, as the head coach, you're managing such a wide field in terms of the expectations of going into sub districts and districts and the state meet. And how are those conversations maybe happening with your coaches as you're leading into it with the different events that you have going and sharing athletes and all those different things? So if you could kind of expand upon that.
Here, I'll try. Let me go. Let me know if I go way off topic. Boy, sharing athletes, boy, that if I can ever figure that out, I'll be a happy camper. Especially at a smaller school, it's something that we're always trying to work on. Um, we haven't really done too much changes over the last couple of the years. Our kids have kind of, especially our boys, have kind of grown into their roles. Um, and I think as far as the more the power oriented athletes, the sprinters, the hurdlers, we haven't quite gotten into the feed the cats mentality yet. I know we've had those conversations, but we found it's working for us because our kids need to do a lot of different events. Um, yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I think this is answering your question. We've just been real patient with kids and letting them grow into their roles. Like I said, becoming track athletes.
Yeah, I think
Is that
that's
where
a
we were going with that question?
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's important that you recognize that because with young kids coming in or kids that are new to track, I mean, I remember we took a pretty good high school quarterback who has seen the bright lights on Friday nights, and he comes to his first track meet, and it was he, he didn't know what to think. I mean, it was so overwhelming. And so
Yeah.
I agree. I think let be patient as a coach. Let them try to figure out how they're going to be successful. What their path is in track is a great strategy.
Sure.
Well, and
Yeah,
obviously
there's
you're the
such a
cross country coach and you've had success with cross country. So sometimes when it's really more streamlined during the fall for you, because it's one event essentially, I would say, how does your strategy change as being the head coach of a track program when you've got multiple events? That may be
yeah.
more sort of beneficial in terms of that,
Okay.
because that's not an easy thing to do as somebody again who
No.
has to have a fixed mindset, and then you get in the spring and you're like, I got to be adaptable. So
Yeah, absolutely. When I first, I mean, I was a head coach back in the day, and then it'd been a long time, and I took over Anacortes in 2015. And Gudgel and I were talking one day that year, and he said, "Yeah, being a head coach is it's such much more of a managerial role." And so I listened to that, and I think I've heeded that. I put a lot of responsibility for training and that sort of thing onto my event coaches. They do such a wonderful job, and I trust them like no other. Um, so I don't have to worry about as much as about that. That affords me the opportunity to kind of look at their marks and their skill sets and kind of be the manager that way and talking with my assistants about whether we need to move them to a different event or whatnot. I mean, we have sat down after practice and had those conversations with about the kids. So in that way, I guess that's one of the strategies I kind of it's kind of a disassociation a little bit. Um, so we can do that. And then you mentioned the other things that just sometimes I feel like I have to scramble when I'm doing the administrative stuff, like preparing for the county meet. I feel like it takes away so much of my time, and my distance runners are suffering this winter. But who cares? It's winter. I just have to kind of realize that myself and prioritize certain.
And Brad, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but is there any of your kids, any of your athletes that you kind of want to give a shout out to just in terms of maybe they significantly exceeded expectations for that state meet? And then if so, then maybe any reasons why that happened.
Yeah, I wrote down a couple names. But the state meet itself, I mean, Luke Hansen just went crazy. He's our probably our better 110 hurdler, and he also runs 300s. But he just the last half of the season just dropped his time, and um, it was really frustrating for him because he's such a team guy when he didn't make the finals of the 110s. But the way he handled himself, it was awesome. So I did not expect Luke to take that much of a drop in his performances uh, last year, and especially at the state meet. We were expecting him to probably place third or fourth. So Luke was a good surprise. I mean, uh, you'll love this pick, Ryder Sill, although he wasn't in any open events for us at state meet. He was in our 4x4 and an alternate on, I think, an alternate on our 4x1. He didn't even run. Ryder is such a quiet kid, but a super special athlete. Ryder didn't even wasn't we didn't even have him running the first month of the season because he was had a combination of being super sick and getting his wisdom teeth pulled. Eventually, we were able to get him into the javelin, so because he couldn't still run, and we baby fed him, and we were able to get him running probably mid season. And then to do what he did at the 4x4 at finals after I had talked to those guys, I think he split 50 something in that 4x4. Just a really great kid. Uh, Zeke, who wouldn't want a transfer student to come in and end up winning a state title? He had been monkeying around a little bit. I mean, sometimes it's hard for him to focus a little bit of practice because he's got so many things he wants to do. Um, but I didn't think he'd jump, 6'4" and win the state title. He wasn't jump. I don't think he jumped 6'4" until sub districts maybe. He came close to 6'6" at that meet. Um, Dylan Rowell as a sophomore. He ran 153 at districts as a sophomore and almost wins the state title in the 800 the following weekend. So, those guys are exciting. When you don't expect somebody to perform like they do, and then they do, it's like, hey, that's fun. Let's start planning for next year.
Well, you got a great returning crew on both sides, and you've won more than one state championship cross country track. So we kind of just want to like, what's your if you have one now and maybe you didn't before, but what's your mindset? What's your build up for your athletes going into a state meet? And obviously with track being multiple days, how do you approach that with your athletes?
Uh, when you say build up, you mean like as far as training goes, or?
Mental, the mentality of like we're
Oh,
going into a state meet. What's
gotcha,
your
gotcha.
what's your preparation for that? Yep.
You know, um, the days leading up to the state meet after we know who's going to be there, we don't really talk about it too much to the kids. It's business as usual at practice. We'll talk to them about the itinerary and what to expect about the environment that they're going to be walking into if they've never been there before. But then what we do is when we get down there, we go down on Wednesdays, the day before, and we have a practice at PLU, and it's really loose, really light. Then we go out for dinner, we come back to the hotel, and we have a team meeting, and we kind of try and simplify it as much as possible. Especially, I mean, if you're in multi events, but especially for those sprinter types, or if you're going to be in flights and the jumps or the throws, just to take it one day at a time, one throw at a time, one attempt at a time. Get and do your best at. Don't even think about finals if you're in prelim. Go do your best, get the finals. That's the goal. But once you're at finals, don't think about maybe getting on the podium. You're going to be on the podium, but think about how high on the podium you can get. And then day up when they're actually competing, uh, we try and do what we can to take anxiety away. I'm sure every coach probably does the same thing, and then also try and bolster their confidence if you see that waning a little bit. Put them in a relaxed atmosphere so they can perform.
Yeah, that's great. And that's the tough part because each kid's different. But I mean,
Each kid is different. Yeah.
yeah, it's a balancing act, and you and your staff did such a great job, and you do every year, but such a great job this year to have everything kind of aligned for you guys was pretty cool to see, and you know be just an arm's distance away from that, competing with you all year was fun to watch. So um,
Thank
yeah,
you.
Jake, anything else from you?
No, that's it.
Brad, I again want to congratulate you not only on your county championships, but on the state championship and everything else that came along with this year. And proud to call you a fellow county coach. And yeah, look forward to this upcoming season and also having you as our co-host on in the next segment with Coach Frey.
Yeah, looking forward to it. We have to get together this spring.
Absolutely. Hey everybody, welcome back from break. We are absolutely pumped to talk to Bob Frey, the head coach for the 4A girls state champs at Emerald Ridge, the Jaguars. Coach Frey, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to hang out with us and talk track here for a few minutes.
Yeah, glad I could be here. Glad you guys are doing this for track. We need all the love we can get.
That's for sure. Jake, why don't you start us off with the 2-minute drill, and then Bob will kind of go into your background and then talk about your season.
Perfect.
Hey, Coach Fry, we usually start out with what we call a 2-minute drill. If it goes more than 2 minutes, we're not going to penalize you. But if you want to kind of give us a quick background on track and field, you can talk a little bit about it competitively for you and your coaching career from, like I said, from high school point to where we are now.
Absolutely. So probably like a lot of kids, I was a middle school kid who liked a little bit of everything. I ran like the mile and the 50-meter dash, and the long jump and all, a little bit of everything. And I saw some kids that I thought were really slow winning the hurdles. And so I thought I'd give that a try. And so that kind of stuck. I was lucky enough to go to a high school. So my future college coach, his dad was my coach in high school, which was really awesome. So Mike McDonald, longtime coach at Bethel High School. And that was a great program, great place to be. We had just athletically, people were rolling football and basketball, volleyball, everything was really competitive and really good at that time. So it was a great time to be there. But we were only 3-year high school. And as a sophomore, I thought I was really fast coming from junior high. And turns out I wasn't, like a lot of kids. And I didn't make it even to our league meet in an event, which was humbling. And our coaches though took me for whatever reason to on to league and districts and state. And I still have a T-shirt that says like Coach Fry on it, which probably should have said Water Boy, but I was the annoying kid that everyone has in their program who, again, thought they knew everything and had an answer for everything, and it was terrible, I imagine. And so I smile and I have a place in my heart for those kids when they come through your program every couple of years or whatever. And then the next year I went to camp at WSU, kind of had a glow up year, and I was the happiest kid to ever make a state final in the 300-meter hurdles as a junior, which was awesome. And then the following year went to state in both hurdles and both relays, which was really great. And being part of a relay, life-changing experience, and still friends with a lot of those fellow coaches now and athletes and whatnot, which is awesome. Ran probably just fast enough, and the fact that my coach's son was the coach at WSU to get the chance to go walk on there, and which is really awesome. Great experience, great coaches, and love that. Again, was not overly competitive in the Pac-10 by any means, and 5'9" ginger running the high hurdles turns out it's not the ideal athletic specimen. And so I did that for 3 years, got hurt a lot, learned a lot, and gave up my last year of eligibility to sign on as a volunteer assistant. So I did that for ultimately 3 years. And again, we had just some great athletes come through at that time. Like we had an Olympian in the heptathlon in 2008, Joshua Anderson, who's now coaching at the University of Washington, wins 3 NCAA titles in that stretch, and just kind of a cool time to be in Pullman. And so I was really grateful for that. And then when I was done with that, got rolling right away in high school and been doing that ever since.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
I'm good.
Hey, Up here in the Northwest Conference, we're pretty much dominated by a lot of small schools, so we don't get the opportunity a lot to take a look at the big picture and see what the bigger schools are up to. Can you give us a brief background on Emerald Ridge, where you're located, what your facilities are like, a little bit about your staff, those
Yeah.
fast kids you've got?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are in kind of the foothills of Mount Rainier. We have, again, what I imagine has to be one of the best views in the track and field world. Our 100-meter straightaway looks like it's running right at Mount Rainier. So if you get a chance ever to check out our Instagram, you'll see some pretty awesome pictures of the mountain, which is cool. We're a 4A school. We're one of the last few school districts that only have 3 grades in our high school. So we're a 10, 11, 12 high school. But our ninth graders come up for athletics. That worked out. The timing of that happened in like 2015 or 16 for us. Just in time, we almost had 3 freshmen at state in the hurdle events, which is awesome. One girl missed it, ran 46 something and didn't make it. And we finished 5th or 6th as a team with basically all freshmen. So that came at the right time for us. We're about 1,500 kids in those 3 grades. We get about 150 kids out in our program. Emerald Ridge itself is only about 25 years old. So again, quickly dating myself, so I've been around now for about half of the school's existence, which does not seem real, but here we are. And again, yeah, just Puyallup community is great. So we're about 15 minutes from the fairgrounds. So those of you who have been to the Puyallup or Washington State Fair, they were gracious enough to sponsor our big invite last year, which was really cool. So big community event in that regard. And we get about 150 kids out for track. I know a lot of you say small schools up in the northwest, but I know you guys churn out the numbers and have big teams up there. So again, we're kind of envious of some of those teams up there, even though we might have more kids roaming around our school. But yeah, I think we're about 15th or so size wise in the state, somewhere in that range. And then the 2 other comprehensive high schools in our district are like top 10 size wise in the state. So
Excellent.
Coach Frey, when you say you said that you guys were sophomore, junior, senior only, correct?
Yeah, for academics. Athletically, we have freshmen in the mix now.
Okay, so that was my question. Is obviously you're counting those kids for your classification as a 4A school, correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. And then follow-up question: what's the name and time of the season of your invite that you guys host?
So we host the South Sound Classic, which we partner with Rogers High School, Rogers of Puyallup. And we started pre-COVID for 1 year. We had about 20 schools. And last year, we almost just under 70 schools showed up for that meet. So, and it kind of right same weekend as Pasco. It has been the last couple years. And again, produced some great marks, which has been awesome. We actually moved it now with the shift in the calendar. That was our spring break. And so we moved it now to May 3rd. So it'll kind of battle with Shoreline and Shelton and some of those other meets. But we're already sitting at about 60 schools, in January. So we think that'll grow. And again, we're excited about that. It's a fun project. And then we do a freshman sophomore invite. We have about 25 schools that attend that late March for those kids to get kind of rolling. When we added freshmen, that was the biggest jump. We were losing so many freshmen and sophomore kids because the reward for getting faster as a freshman or sophomore is you just race against faster people. And I think kids were not having the success that they felt as junior high conference champions and things like that. And so that was an important addition to our schedule, 4 or 5 years ago now. And it's been good culture builder for us.
Cool. I wanted to make sure I gave you an opportunity to throw in a shameless plug there for your invite.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll take everything we can get.
Well, Coach Frey, let's jump into the state meet itself. So in interviewing most of these coaches, if you're scoring around 60 points, you've got a good shot at winning. You guys, you guys waxed everybody else. I mean, you guys put a hurt down. It was Emerald Ridge girls with 102 points. Second was Kamiakin with 49, and South Kitsap rounded out third place with 43. I'm just going to go through kind of your big point getters, and then maybe you can touch on those performances here when I'm done. But you had Irene Derricks win the 100. She ran a 12.23 in finals, got you 10 points. And then you guys went 1 and 2 in the 200. Michaela Gardley
Yep.
She ran a 24.85, and then Irene Derricks, who won the 100, was second in that race. And this is one that is going to keep coming up, this name. And you've got to talk a little bit about your decision to put her in what events. And because it seems like she could have done a bunch. But anyways, I'll get to the point. Jaciona Garrow Holt, she ran the 100 hurdles, won that, was a state champ with a time of 14.84. Michaela Gardley, who was first in the 2, also won the 300 hurdles. 43.63 is what I have her at in finals. Your 4x2 takes third place. Biambongo, Kill Cup, Derricks, and Gardley. Your 4x4 is state champs with a 353.83. That's Derricks, Nader, Kilcup, and Gardley. So a lot of these names keep coming up. Okay, and then we go back to Jay. She won the 100 hurdles, like I said earlier. She was also state champ in the shot put, 44.10 and a half. She was also state champ in the high jump with a jump of 5.10. And I think the second place jump was like 5.5, something
Yep.
like that. And
Yep.
I know that Jay's won over 6 feet before. She also won the long jump. I'm sorry, she was second in the long jump.
Yeah.
And then you had 2 throwers, one state champ, Jay again with a 44.10 and a half. And then in disc, you had Addison Ogden was second. Unbelievable performances by those gals. It seemed like most of your girls that were in the meet placed, top 3. I know you had some other ones that were a little bit down further, but man, by and large, most of your girls came to perform and did an incredible job scoring 102 points. Can you just talk to us a little bit about the state meet, the experience of it, and those girls mentioned earlier?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I mean, making it to state, I mean, in and of itself, as a mediocre athlete myself, just being there is an awesome testament to, again, kids and all they're doing and whatnot. So to have girls go in and essentially to win almost a third of the events, again, is ridiculous. And again, the right combination of talents kind of in the right place at the right time. So Irene, so we'll start kind of in the shortest events. She on the maybe Tuesday of the start of track season was not cleared to participate, was too nervous to come out. And adults at the junior high where she was at kept kind of nudging her, no, you got to give this a try. And she had been conference champion. She had run 12:50 and 26 something as an 8th grader and whatnot. And both of her older siblings had been in our program. But she was a kid who, again, maybe a week or two away from not even coming out for track. And so for her to have this season, she does. And if you watch kind of her trajectory, she wins a lot, but doesn't run real fast until she goes down to the Oregon relays and wins the freshman section there and makes the final, which she runs 12:14 or so, something like that, 12 low. And for her, that was a big moment and kind of changed the trajectory of her season. The conditions at Mount Tahoma are not great for running real fast in the straightaway events. And so she goes on this summer to run 11:89, which is number 2 all time for a freshman. Just missed the freshman state record. And then her and Michaela run 23:80 and 23:80 something. So they're number 6, number 8 all time in state history in that event. And kind of on our dope sheet and figuring out the state meet, we had Irene probably 3rd or 4th at best. The featherweight girl who won the triple jump, who's at Oregon now, is really talented. She had almost beaten Michaela at our district meet. Michaela was going to have a gauntlet of events to go through by the time she got to the 200 late in the meet. And again, if we went 2-3, maybe 1-4, 1-3 in that, we were going to be really happy. And so for Irene she was probably 5th or 6th coming off the corner, and to come up and finish and have a 1-2 finish was, again, amazing for us. Demographically and just culturally, we have not been a school that has produced a ton of speedy athletes. I think I've been someone who's been more inclined to keep kids in the 400 and do more strength stuff and whatnot. And we've kind of had a shift in our training that, again, I think is producing better and faster athletes. We had school records in the 100, 200, and 400 for men and women this year, 4x1s for the men, and then all 2 of the 3 relays for the women. And so, again, we're probably on the right track now. We're figuring some things out in that regard. And so Irene has a great season. She ends up running 57 something this summer in the 400. And spoiler alert, she's a pretty good hurdler all of a sudden. So we spent some time this summer doing that. She ran the 400 hurdles once this summer reluctantly, and I would tell you it looked like a disaster. And she ran 66 or something in that. And so she got a shot to run pretty fast in 5 or 6 events, a year from or whatever, a few months from now. And so we're excited about that. And she had an emotional kind of state meet. She was Michaela would tell you that Michaela's a tough teammate, and the fact they got third in the 4x2 did not sit well with Michaela, which again is it's funny for a lot of reasons, but there was some tension in the team tent in that regard, and so for them to come back and do what they did was an awesome testament to just kind of who they are as people. Reese Nader, who runs on our 4x4 that wins the state title, like she was on our 4x2 at league that set a school record, and like we move her off of there in favor of somebody else going into districts, and again trying to figure out some of those puzzle pieces and whatnot. And so again, Irene, Michaela, some of these big players in that, again, just awesome teammates and whatnot. And so we're excited about 3 more years with Irene in that regard, and we're excited about her state meet. Michaela is maybe one of the coolest success stories we've had in track in our program, and one of the coolest things I've seen. She came to us at semester her junior year, had been a distance runner and didn't love it. I think did 1 meet as a sophomore and then quit track. And she had a teammate or a coach, excuse me, and teacher at Rogers where she was at, kind of reach out and say, hey, this girl's coming. She might be a better like 400, 800 kid, kind of just culturally and whatnot. She might be a better fit there. And so right away, we kind of put her in those things. Like she high jumps 5.2 in the first month, like, is running all of a sudden real well on the 4x4. And we put her in the hurdles about midway through the year. So at our invite, she makes her hurdle debut and runs 46 something, which is a good place to start. And then misses beating a good Kamiak girl, Kalia Estes, by 100th of a second in the state final after 6 weeks kind of hurdling. Fast forward a year, and she is top 10 all time in the 300 hurdles. Unfortunately for her, at our school, that means she's third all time. We have 4 girls in the top dozen or so all time. And so she runs 42, 30 something. I would say kind of by accident. Her hurdling's not quite good yet, but the stars aligned and she PR'd by almost 2 seconds at our district meet, which was awesome. And then she's the 4A state leader in the 400, runs 54.99, and we don't run her in that at districts and state. That was a tough conversation. So after our league meet, which she won and runs 55 low, gets a big PR. I meet her and mom in a parking lot on a Sunday right before the scratch deadline to kind of explain like, hey, we think we got a shot at winning this 4x4. We hadn't run real fast yet. And then the way the state schedule works to have the 4x4 at the end and have it on Thursday, we thought would be a better balance of events for her and give her the best chance to win the hurdles and the 200. But it did not sit very well, right? She thought she could win 4 events. And, there's a little bit of feeling that I was going to take that away from her. And again, luckily for us, it plays out well. But again, those are tough conversations. And so for her to have a monster state meet, essentially in 1 year of sprinting and hurdling, to be, again, top 10 all time in the 200, top 10 all time in the 300 hurdles, to be the 4A state leader in the 400, and then to win a come from behind 4x4 to cap the meet is a pretty amazing year for her. She's a kid who came to us, and graduated with us with not what I would consider a stellar GPA. And as a Coug, it pains me, but she's at, again, one of the top 10 public schools in the country, right? The University of Washington, getting a world-class education and, again, running track there. And so that trajectory over a year and a half, has to be one of our biggest success stories. And so we're really proud of that. And watching her even just grow as a human over that time was pretty awesome. And so, yeah, so she was part of the kind of the puzzle to begin with. Irene trying to figure out, okay, as a freshman, can she do 4 events? We weren't necessarily sold on that. And it kind of worked out okay. And then with Jaciana, as a unique and stellar kind of athlete that she is, there are needs and demands outside of the framework of the high school season that we have to consider, right? She's 6th in the Olympic trials. She had made 3 U20 teams, like as a 15, 16, and 17-year-old. She's second to Vashti Cunningham indoors at the USATF indoor meet. And again, she's got an agenda and she has things she wants to accomplish over the course of the season. And so for whatever reason, the guy who had been mentoring her kind of through the club season and summer and whatnot, he had gotten sick. Longtime coach at Yelm High School, Hall of Famer Mike Strong. So he had done most of her kind of nurturing and coaching from beginning in 8th grade, and really good javelin coach. And she had won the javelin as a sophomore. And we decided not to do that event. Javelin wasn't going great in the winter and whatnot. And so yeah, very quickly we took that kind of off the table. And then, okay, it became fun to toy with the idea of winning the shot put, another event that she hadn't won. And so that came up. And then as a competitor that she is, she had won the long jump as a freshman, beat the girl who's, again, now at Oregon, really talented girl. But then that girl had beaten her the year after, and she really wanted to compete against her. And so the long jump stayed kind of in the mix. And for us, we were at a position points wise where being second or being first or being third or something wasn't going to be the difference maker. And so we were able to kind of support Jay in that decision making. And the hurdles become, again, just really downtime in our state right now in the hurdles. For Jay to win 3 4A state titles and, running 14 mid to 14 high, it's not great for the state of things right now, how things kind of are. But she's able to do that. So she wins 3 state hurdle titles. She sets a state record in the high jump in the offseason indoors. And then, wins the state title in the long jump, javelin, and shot put to kind of round out a pretty cool 3-year high school career. So now she's a freshman now at the University of Illinois. So she won't return for her senior season, which, again, I think is a win kind of for everybody. I think she was ready to be done with high school probably as a sophomore and on to, bigger and better things for her, which we're excited about. And then she chose the right coach. So anyone in the multis world knows what Petros Cipriano does at Illinois now, but was at Georgia before that. And they win a national title almost only in the field events. It's pretty cool. So she's probably there with one of the best technical minds in the country. And again, doing really awesome things there. So, yeah. So, and then you sprinkle that in. We have some great kids. We set so many school records. So to get there at the, final meet, Jay breaks the school record in long jump. So she gets second place in the long jump, but jumping against Cassandra pushes her to an 18:11 3/4 jump. So just short of 19 feet. Our discus thrower, again, the state record was tied in the discus in the 4A. And so it took that to, beat her. And she throws a school record 138.10, which was awesome. Her brother was a state champion for us in the high hurdles. And so, again, great family, hardworking, awesome kids. And again, we were really reliant then on the other kind of pieces to fill in. And so Maggie Kilcup runs on both of our relays, and she's at Central Washington now. And again, we knew we had a shot to win the year before. We ran maybe 4:04 in the 4x4 at districts. But 2 really important pieces of that leg were Michaela and then Emmy Bates, who's now at Southern Mississippi. So she's an 800 runner. She ran 2:12, 4:57. And we decided at 4:04 we were going to be lucky to make the final. And if our goal was to win a state title, we took Michaela and Emmy off that 4x4, one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make as a coach. And so we run 4:04 at districts, and with our alternates, we run 4:30 something at the state meet. And so for Maggie Kilcup, who fast forward a year is now a senior on a state champion 4x4 team and a 3rd place 4x2 team, she was the best girl that didn't get taken off the relay. And that's a tough thing to be kind of a part of. And again, she handled it with class. She's an awesome young lady. And so it's really cool to kind of be able to validate that. To not only win the state title the first year because of that decision, but then a year later to be able to reward her with winning a 4x4 and ending her high school career that way was a really cool process for us. And again, probably was part of the motivating factor of taking Michaela out of the 400 and into a 4x4 when you consider kind of the whole team dynamic in that regard. So we went into the state meet. This is kind of a cool testament to our athletes and our coaches, especially. We thought we could score 92 or so points, and you have the dope sheet and you have it all spread out. We did not lose a single point in any single event as we had it projected. And again, and we scored almost 10 points more than we thought we would. It included, we had 3 girls in the shot put and 3 girls in the discus. It meant 2 of the girls in the shot put, they switched places from where we thought they would be. So one didn't end up scoring, and she had scored before the year before. And then Addison snuck in to score some points for the team, the girl who had been second in the discus. And so, yeah, that was it was to know that everything, went the right way was pretty validating for our staff. And that's what it took to score 102 points, which broke the 98.5 points is what those really good Tahoma teams had scored with the really good relays and jumpers and sprinters, 5 or 6 years before that. And so we were really proud of that. And no single athlete won that meet for us. So year before, we wouldn't have got a trophy without JCiana. A year later, you could take JCiana out of that equation and we win a state title. You can take Michaela out of that equation and we win a state title. And so that's a great testament to the whole team. So we're really proud of that.
That's an unbelievable story. And you kind of went into moving the puzzle pieces around. And it sounds like you guys made a lot of tough decisions. But holy smokes, did it pay off for you guys? So, pretty cool. Pretty cool experience. Jake, do you want to take the next question?
Yeah, I'll take the next one. Yeah, Coach Frey, I really appreciate it. That was a great summary of not only some of the individual accomplishments, but again, kind of your thought processes in terms of what you did. And I really appreciate you talking about, it's always that tough thing about having a conversation and how that conversation needs to happen. And, it's not just about the athlete in high school. It's about the parent, and it's about the community, and it's about, it's a lot of juggling that has to go along. And I think, you did a good job explaining that, because I don't think a lot of people understand all the moving parts of a team. And that was great to hear. Obviously we all want to have as much talent as you're kind of working with, but like when that talent is there, man, it takes some talking to, and that was great to hear. So appreciate you.
There were definitely some tears shed over that 3-day weekend, despite the fact that everything was going well, and it wasn't just me, luckily.
Well, we wanted to kind of ask, what's your biggest takeaways for this upcoming season?
Yeah, so when you unload 2 huge pieces like JCiana and Michaela, it's always fun to kind of figure out who's going to be the next athlete to step up. And we're excited about that. We have a kind of a core of young freshman girls a year ago who, we had a couple girls who went down to the heptathlon and surprisingly jumped almost 5 feet. And we have, some little pieces like that we're excited to see that, again, hopefully with a little bit of coaching, they're better a year from now. Irene is going to be a treat to coach. She's a great young lady, and that's going to be fun. I think the 4A is too good right now to have a shot to repeat. Some of the Eastlake team is really good right now. Mount Si coming off the 4A state title in cross country. They have some pieces, in place that they'll have a shot to win. And so we're just going to try to figure out, how we can continue to win dual meets, which is culturally important for us. And then how does that transfer then to the postseason and on to league and districts and state. And so, we're excited about those things. Our kids had a great fall in cross country. And so we're excited to see some of those kids continue to step up and improve, as their kind of elder classmen graduate and whatnot, and leave room for the next generation to step in and go compete. And so we're excited about those things. Our staff comes back intact. And so, we're excited that those same people culturally are on board to continue to kind of nurture our athletes and set them up for the, best possible season they can have. And so, and then the growth of our invite and all those things, just again, hoping to continue to make track and field exciting and fun, for athletes in our program. So.
I appreciate you talking about staff. I think that kind of leads us into our next question. I think Brad's going to kind of go and ask that one in terms of staff.
I kind of like this question. Zooming out a little bit, Bob, what's the one thing that either you or your staff that you think you do really well that may have played the biggest role in your state title this year or last year?
So I think probably everything starts with trust. So a lot of those conversations that I alluded to, they have to be grounded somewhere in trust. So the athlete knows that you have, their best interests and you're considering the team and all those elements. And so, that's paramount to anything and everything that we do. And I think once we have that, I think one of the things I think we do well is moving athletes to events where they can have the most immediate success, but then also gives them the best chance if they have goals of going on collegiately to go and do those things. And that might mean putting a hammer in a kid's hand, right? As opposed to just the shot in the disc, because, well, that's maybe where scholarship money's at for kids. Or for us, it's meant, I mentioned Mike Strong earlier. I was lucky enough to kind of be around him early on in my, athletic career and then early on in my coaching career. And he had maybe the second fastest freshman and sophomore boy ever in the 100 and the 200. And he had the wherewithal to figure out that this kid's probably a hurdler, jumper type kid. And so they take him out of the 100 and the 200. He still runs 2150 and, 1070 something. Any other coach, or not any other coach, most coaches, they have a 1070 kid and a 21 anything kid. And like that kid is not moving out of the 100 and the 200, for any reason. And that kid instead goes on to run 1420 in the hurdles and 36 high in the 300 hurdles, and goes on to then compete collegiately and runs 49 high in the 400 hurdles and whatnot. And so for us, figuring out whether it's speed or power or whatever those things are, and now how do you transfer that to get the biggest bang out of the buck for the kid? For us, that lens and my lens kind of tends to push kids that are talented into the hurdles. And that's why we've had kind of success there. And so with that, if you can hurdle, well, you can still sprint, it turns out. And so we push a lot of our best athletes there. And Irene, who's only 5'2" or 5'3", like the first chance I got this summer, like that's what we started working on. And so again, kind of the trust and belief among our athletes. And then that extends to our coaching staff. And I think we have just a great mix of really smart people. Not all of them are throws coach. So we had, again, 3 women in the shot, 3 women in the disc. We had a boy win a state title in a shot put the year before. And we had 3 boys at state in the discus the year before. Jay won the, state championship in the javelin. Our throws coach was a middle distance runner in college. But again, the guy's got a master's degree in chemistry. He's a pretty smart dude. And so we put him in a place where we know, kind of scrambling at the last minute, hey, we have a lot of talented kids here. You're smart, like figure this out. And, very quickly now, like that's maybe one of our strongest elements in our program is the throws. And a guy who would tell you like he went to Ironwood and was just like throwing with the kids, to try to figure out what, the hammer is like and what the discus is like and the shot put is like. And so, it takes people like that kind of buying in and wanting to be a part of athletes' lives, which is awesome. So the other head coach in our program, Pat Mullen. So he's a guy who brings a lot of he's coached track for a long time, but brings a good competitive edge. Just celebrated his 400th state basketball win, which included a state title when he was at Bethel in the 4A and that, and just brings a good competitive fire for kids. And then balances me out. I'm an absolute track nerd. At times, again, I care about it probably way more than the kids do. It feels like, and he's the guy who can both talk me kind of back and say, hey, like perspective here, and vice versa. He can translate to the kids sometimes like, yeah, I know he's being tough on you, but like that's because he cares about you. And so we have a balance kind of within our program and some of those moving pieces. We added a new distance coach a year ago, and he's been great kind of culturally for our kids. And so we're excited to continue that work forward and whatnot. And so, yeah, we're just kind of excited about where we're at. But I think the thing we're probably most proud of is finding the right event for the right kid. And that might mean moving up. It might mean moving down. It might mean, again, jumping or throwing or whatnot. But again, we're really proud to try to do best by kids by getting them in the place where they can be the most successful. So, and we have a staff that kind of believes in that model. So,
excellent.
Bob, our hurdles coach is going to love this episode, by the way. So thanks for that. Appreciate it.
I know. Whenever I speak at the coaches convention, the coaches are like, well, yeah, how do we get more time with the hurdles? And I'm like, well, you just become the head coach. And then, then you don't have to fight with who's going to come do the hurdles and whatnot. That's just where the good kids go. And where I know in a lot of programs it gets treated like a field event, well, we'll go sprint and then we'll teach you how to hurdle, and hopefully the two find their way together and whatnot. But we're definitely real intentional with our hurdlers, and So anyways, and for us, we've been successful with that, so we're going to stick to it. So
I was gonna say it sounds like that's paid off for you. Um, okay, we're down to our last question here as we're pushing up on time a little bit.
yeah,
This question has to do with influences. You say you're a track nerd, and I mean this in all due respect. You can definitely tell that you are into track,
yeah,
just by the way that you can rattle off performances and numbers. And I'm always envious of coaches that can do that because I'm not that person in terms
yeah.
of that memory piece. Um, but who or what have been kind of the three biggest influences on your coaching philosophy and why?
Yeah. So I mentioned Mike Strong already. He's a guy who I think he's pushing 80 years old and is a guy that I've watched over the last 25 years change his model, 20 times in those, 20 years. And I think that's what it takes to make sure we're best serving athletes, right? That we have some principles and some cornerstones that drive what we do, but that we're always asking questions and figuring out what comes next for athletes. And so, again, I was lucky enough to kind of be around him at the right time. And then now I've been lucky. That's one of the things that made JCiana's success in our program kind of both awesome to be a part of, but more fluid is that him and I were on the same page in regards to training and making sure kind of her needs were met. And so he continues to be a big influence in my life. And then so kind of my college coach and some other people who are in the mix at WSU have been great. So Mark McDonald was, again, one of the best assistant coaches in the country for a lot of years at WSU. And again, turns, kids from Pullman High School and, little Kiona Benton High School and some of these, things you would never imagine that people are going to compete on the national level that come from some of these small schools. Eric Dudley is part of that. So a Seaholm grad up there in the Northwest. He was a big influence kind of early on, an absolute dude, got a mechanical engineering degree because he wanted to, figure out how the body worked better. And, he just stepped down at Western within the last couple of years, but coached up there for a while. So him and Coach McDonald were kind of big influences. And then I think all of my high school coaches were a big influence. We were talking about milestones kind of today at lunch with Coach Mullen earning that 400th win. And we were just asking whether or not kids leave high school athletics happier than maybe when they started. Are they happy with what happened? And I was just kind of sharing that I remember driving back from Pasco the first year the state meet and moved to Pasco and just absolutely bawling my eyes out because it meant that high school track was over. And my coaches had been so influential in my life. My hurdle coach drove me over to Pullman and back in the same day to go to track camp. And again, things like that go a long way in just changing athletes' lives. And so when you get invited to a wedding or, someone sends you a happy Father's Day card or things like that, like as a coach, that, you're doing something right. And so, and for me, that came from, people in my life who did it right. And I was grateful for that. And so kind of my mission is to kind of pass that on to other athletes in our program. So that's something I'm proud of and our other coaches are proud of as well. So, and again, just a great testament to the people that I was lucky enough to learn from and to kind of model my approach after. So
Great. Well, before we wrap things up, Brad, Jake, anything else from you guys?
No, it was really enjoyed speaking with you, Bob. It was fun to learn about all the different individual talent, what went behind that during your season last year.
well, I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's so interesting because we're at the same meet with you guys, and you get so distracted with your own team and everything that's going on, and it was when we were looking stuff up, I was just like, how did this happen? And I wasn't aware of it. So it's giving me a better perspective on I need to pay a little bit more attention to what the heck's going on. But
Yeah.
also, this is great to recap this whole thing because this whole story was happening with your team, and we're so centered on our own experience. But yeah, it was really great talking to you. I appreciate your time. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's been one of the things that's kind of shifted over the last few years. We've had a lot of kids at state, and it's meant, oh, we don't get to go to our normal lunch spot because turns out there's like always an event to watch. And I'm like, oh man, which is great, a great problem to have. But all of a sudden 30 kids in the tent. It's like, where'd all these kids come from? Like we had 6 relays, including a unified relay. So every boys relay made it, every girls relay, and then you throw out a unified relay in there. And yeah, all of a sudden we had 4 tents and who knows how to feed these kids. So Again, a good problem to have, but it was, it is a problem in some ways. So, but we're grateful for it.
Well, I guess this will be the last question. How friggin' exhausted were you after that weekend?
Yeah. I was, and yeah, so I dug a hole and stayed there for a day or two. But then one of the things I'm really excited about, is then we turned around and host the heptathlon decathlon the next weekend. So, Judd Hunter, who runs that up at Arlington, like again, I was up there working right alongside of him a week later, and then our club hosted 1,000 youth athletes, so little 6-year-olds running around the next weekend. And yeah, yeah, it's a lot, but again, it's fun and wouldn't have it any other way. So,
All right. Well, no rest for the wicked.
no.
Coach Frey, I so much appreciate you coming on. You got me jacked up for track season, and here it is, early January. So the juices are flowing. Again, I appreciate you coming on here, and yeah, hopefully the listening audience gained quite a few bits of info and some strategy from you listening to tonight's podcast.
All right, perfect. I appreciate again what you guys are doing, and thanks for inviting me on.